I'm Nate. I lead ecosystem for Moonbeam, and I end up hosting a lot of these. So thanks for everybody to join in. So today we are going to do Moonriver DeFi ecosystem. Now I do have to just say none of what is discussed here today is financial advice in any way, shape, or form. Just want to put that out there. But let's get to it. So I want to introduce everybody, and we'll kind of we'll just start with Jacob over at Lido. Jay Breezy, do you want to just introduce yourself and introduce a quick aside on Lido?
Yeah, sure. I go by Jay Breezy. I head business development and partnerships for Lido across all of our ecosystems that were deployed. For anyone that doesn't know, Lido makes a liquid staking token. And the TLDR on that is before liquid staking, users had to make the choice between securing and helping validate the network on POS systems or being a degenerate yield farmer and pursuing the highest yield. And generally self-interest would win over security and altruism. So with liquid synthetics, such as what Lido makes, it allows you to provide security and help keep these underlying POS networks decentralized. And at the same time, you get to go and farm in DeFi up to your appropriate risk level of choice. So it allows you to basically have your cake and eat it too.
Beauty. Cool. We will jump over to Luke. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Luke Youngblood, and I'm a co-founder of the Moonwell project. And to tell you a little bit about Moonwell, Moonwell is an open lending and borrowing protocol on Moonriver today, and will soon be on Moonbeam as well. And so what does that allow you to do? It allows you to take a token that you already have, maybe something like Mover, and you can lend it out to other borrowers. You can also borrow a stablecoin or any other crypto asset against it. So it allows you to do more with the crypto that you already have. We're already seeing a lot of adoption across the Moonriver ecosystem, and we've been really excited to have a really strong Moonwell community forum in the last couple months since we launched in February. But really, it's been great to be a part of the Moonriver ecosystem. So thanks for inviting us this morning.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great to have you, Luke. Thanks. We will go to Weso Beefy next to introduce himself and Beefy Finance.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Weso from Beefy. Beefy Finance is one of the leading multi-chain yield optimizers. We currently exist on 14 different blockchains, including Moonriver and Moonbeam. So we build on top of other yield protocols, so wherever there's a yield opportunity, and we're able to generate compound interest by optimizing that yield, so selling it for more whatever the deposit asset is. And we do that across AMMs, lending protocols, any sort of yield source, even validators. So we're continuing to expand on different blockchains, but we love building on Moonriver and Moonbeam, and looking forward to the discussion today. Actually, a lot of friends are on the panel, people that are potential partners in the future. So.
Absolutely. We love to make connections for teams, and it's always good to see more and more teams working together and just making the Moonriver and soon to be Moonbeam pie even bigger. So, and then last but not least, we've got Firekid from Solarbeam.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. I'm Firekid. I'm founder of Solarbeam. We are a yield farming AMM that has already launched on Moonriver and Moonbeam. This pretty much means that we allow you to trade tokens and especially stables now with our launch on StableSwap with almost zero slippage. And we also have Eclipse, which are our own decentralized launchpad, which will help projects to raise funds and launch on Moonriver.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. I think we've got. I would look at this as kind of some of the core infrastructure for a DeFi ecosystem. So I'm excited to get everybody together. So, if I look at the makeup of kind of the four teams represented here, we've got two that are very much multi-chain focused, and then two that are a little more native focused in terms of where they've kind of launched. And so I think there's probably pros and cons of each, or maybe some challenges you've kind of seen in the past. But Luke, why don't I start with you in terms of like a native implementation? I think what are some of the things that like drew you to kind of launch natively on Moonbeam versus somewhere else to start?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Nate. So first of all, one of the big draws to Moonriver, of course, is the fact that it's EVM compatible. And so over the last 5 years or so, everyone has built a ton of tooling around Ethereum. We have Solidity. We have all types of developer tooling. We have multi-sigs that we can use to store funds. We have just a lot of infrastructure that's been built up over the last half decade around the Ethereum ecosystem. And so having access to all the tooling that exists and makes developers' lives easier is great for us. And then the other really compelling draw is just the Polkadot relay chain and the Kusama relay chain that Moonriver is built on top of, which basically allows us to send data between multiple parachains and run multiple layer 1 blockchains. And so there have been so many interesting innovations in the parachain space, and there are all these great teams like Interlay that are building a bridge to Bitcoin as a parachain, and other really super interesting use cases that are yet to be seen. And I think we'll have access to all of those assets on Moonriver, and it's just really incredible to kind of have that rich plethora of different L1 ecosystems with direct access from like native EVM tooling.
Gotcha. No, that's good input. I mean, that's certainly how we kind of see see the Kusama ecosystem kind of evolving, and Moonriver being part of that. Kind of almost at the center of that to help facilitate all these assets to kind of come and go as they please and be used in different protocols like you guys have now. Farkid, you guys were I think you were the first DEX to get launched on Moonriver when it went live. How did you guys kind of come to Polkadot? Like, what's your where did you guys kind of come into the ecosystem? What drew you kind of to Kusama and to Polkadot originally?
Actually, I think we were the second one to launch. However, we are the first one that was using, let's say, SushiSwap fork, and the UI was similar to that. However, I mean, I didn't find out about Moonriver, let's say, last year when it launched. I've been trading crypto for quite a few years now. I think it's been over like 5, 6. So I was a big fan actually of Polkadot since the moment it was announced, and have been following it closely, participating in most of the crowd loans and everything. And I also knew about Moonriver and Moonbeam since you guys announced. I mean, like let's just say a few months afterwards. And I was actually excited in the idea, and I'm actually a big fan of Gavin. And I think he was like very forward thinker, especially when he was considering the scalability that Ethereum has. And he was offering the Polkadot/Kusama solution. So when I found out that Moonriver and Moonbeam will be launching like Moonriver, let's say in September, I contacted the other two co-founders of Solarbeam, and I told them, guys, since we were discussing of starting a project, I think Moonriver is the optimal choice.
Nice. Well, awesome. And so from like I said, the makeup of the call today, I think you guys are two of the teams that are native. On the other side, we've got Beefy and we've got Lido who have a more multi-chain strategy in terms of what they're building. And so Wiso, do you mind talking about, like, I think you mentioned 14 chains, like what's the criteria you guys kind of use to look at supporting other chains, and how do you kind of think about your expansion strategy?
Yes, I think number one is like opportunity. So when Moonriver launched, we actually had a ton of community members that were coming and saying, hey, like when Moonriver. And at that time, I think we were only on probably like half as many chains. And so, we had a lot of community demand and drive to get over there. And so, we looked at the possibilities and I think met with the Moonbeam Moonriver team about deploying. And since a lot of these chains are now EVM compatible, like Luke said, it makes like our deployment process a little bit easier. So a lot of our like infrastructure is very similar chain to chain to chain. And so then it's really just working with the underlying protocols. And so I think one of the most important things, what Moonriver has done really, really well is get us attached to like the other protocols that have launched within the ecosystem. So the best way for DeFi to succeed in any of these chains and these blockchain ecosystems is to really have all of these products like working together and starting to partner and build things together. And so they've been very open to helping us connect with projects so that we can start to, really facilitate those partnerships and to, do code review and be building on top of the other protocols. So we look for like, what's the opportunity look like? So how many projects are building on the blockchain itself? If we go to launch over there, are we going to be able to, are we just like launching on top of like one protocol, or if there's multiple protocols that want to work with us? And so I think, both at Moonriver and Moonbeam, we've seen, multiple protocols that have sufficient opportunity for us to partner together. And it seems like that's just continually expanding.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to hear. I think, one of the things that I generally do talk to teams who are talking to me about coming to build on Moonbeam or Moonriver is we have tried to foster a real open ecosystem, I guess I'd call it, or like one of like collaboration. I think that, the space is so young and so new that, kind of being super competitive with each other and different ways and whatnot, it can kind of strangle innovation. It can strangle, the growth. And so it's good to hear that, folks have been really open to working with you, and hopefully everybody else on the panel feels the same way, that we've done a relatively good job of kind of fostering this collaborative ecosystem. And so JBZ, Lido, I think you guys have like 4 or 5 deployments at this point. I would ask you the same question. How does Lido think about expanding to other layer ones and supporting certain assets? What are some of the things that go into supporting that?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity on our side as to what Beefy is doing. We currently are live on Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, Kusama, and Terra, with Polkadot launching, fingers crossed, in the next couple of weeks, assuming cross-chain messaging gets implemented across all the various dependencies that we have. So soon TM. One thing that we do is we look at the economics. People assume because of our large TVL that we're printing, profits hand over fist. But the reality is we view Lido as more of a public good, liquid staking in general. And just to give some context, for every $100 million that's staked on a platform like Ethereum, we, meaning Lido, our treasury, is only taking home a gross revenue of $200,000 per 100 million. So if you convert that to margins before operating expenses, that's a 0.2% margin versus someone like a Salesforce that has like 60 or 70% margins. So one of the things to consider is that when we're looking at these chains, operating liquid staking is fundamentally expensive. Right now, just for some of our biggest expense areas, there's liquidity rewards and incentives. We also do grants programs as well as additional partnerships. All of that eats into additional operating costs. So for us, we have to look at the TVL of certain platforms, the state of their DeFi ecosystem, where they are kind of in their launch cycle, and the budding development of the ecosystem to determine if a POS chain is worth it economically. We would ideally love to be everywhere all at the same time. But since we work with a number of different partners, and going back to that cost center issue, we need to know that we can achieve a certain level of scale because we're such a volume-based protocol. So if that kind of matches those criteria, then we usually start by reaching out to the foundations to talk with them about what that would look like, and if it's a valid expansion choice right now, or if it's something we should keep an eye on for longer term. And with Moonriver and Moonbeam, same reasons everyone else mentioned, the EVM compatibility is super helpful versus on like Solana or Terra, where we had to write everything from scratch. And also Polkadot just seems poised, Polkadot and Kusama in general seem poised to have their moment of the rotator cycle this year. So we're waiting for that to kind of unlock, and we expect a huge volume of capital to flow in soon.
Gotcha. Yeah, this might be the first one of these 9 or 10 sessions that anyone has mentioned something like Salesforce. So I appreciate that. That's good. I like tying in things like margin and whatnot. Sometimes we go too far down the rabbit hole where it's just magic internet monies that the printer turns on. And so looking at things where it's like operating costs and margins and traditional business stuff is always good to kind of tie in here. I'll go back to you on that in terms of like outside of, I guess, just like pure operating costs. Like, what are some of the challenges? I think you kind of touched on, when you go to other chains that maybe aren't EVM compatible. What are some of the challenges for supporting some of these other chains?
Well, even ones that are EVM compatible, every blockchain, I've started describing them as almost like different countries. They have their own nuance on the technology stack, their own memes, their own culture. So we learned a fairly painful lesson when we expanded to Solana. We kind of just said, oh, we'll do liquid staking like we did on Ethereum, and we'll do that on other chains. It'll be like McDonald's franchising across the world. And what we quickly identified is we can't take quite such a broadsword approach. We actually need to make sure that we're integrated with the community, that we're talking to them, that they know who we are, what we're providing. I'll keep using Solana as an example. We do have a homegrown competitor there. And one of the biggest challenges was getting through the culture side of it. They knew who we were, but we weren't born and raised on Solana by Solanians. So they were kind of like, we don't dislike you, but we don't like you. You're some foreigner that's playing around in our ecosystem. So that was a huge learning curve from the BD and partnership side, is that we need to be much more boots on the ground. And then, like I mentioned, every build of a Lido extension on a new POS chain has all of these nuances and specific criteria that need to be taken into consideration. So we can't just copy pasta Lido to every EVM chain that works and make it scale so quickly. So those are the two biggest areas I think we've had. I guess I'd call them growing pains in.
Gotcha. And on the Beefy side, what about you guys? Have you seen some common challenges that you guys run into when adding new chains? Any pitfalls you've kind of run into?
Yeah. JBZ like hit it on the head, right? Like brand equity on a certain chain may be very strong, and then you go to another chain, you have to like rebuild that whole brand equity again. So that's been, I think, something we've expanded so much, and that I think like most people know us as like one of the larger cross chain protocols. So when we go to a new EVM chain, it seems like we actually have a decent amount of brand equity when we get started now. But we're always kind of like, there is like a little bit of like a battle, I think, between like native protocols and then those who are like building cross chain, in which like it's almost like you if you're not native and you are a cross chain protocol, even though you're delegating a lot of resources to building on that specific network, it's almost like you're kind of looked at like in a different light than a native protocol. So you have to kind of, I think, build past that mindset and say, hey, we're just as actively building and putting a lot of resources to building on this specific network, just as much as some of these other native protocols are. And even to that effort, it's like it takes a ton of developers. And so as you continue to expand and become bigger and larger and on more blockchains, you really have to have enough contributors and development in order to even accommodate all these different blockchains and be able to support them at the same service level. So it becomes definitely a challenge as you continue to expand and grow bigger. It's not just as easy as just, okay, hey, go launch this stuff and then forget about it. Each of these different blockchains are building and growing so fast that, in order to really, I think, make the most of the opportunities, you have to really keep an eye on it and be able to continue those partnerships. And so it takes a lot of resources, and also actually base infrastructure, right? you'd be amazed at like, things like oracles and multi-signature wallets and stuff that a lot of these DeFi platforms need is just not available right away when these blockchains launch. So you really can't even develop out your DeFi ecosystem without like the core infrastructure needed in order to make things like safe and secure in order to play in there.
And just to hop in, speaking of oracles, that's something we are constantly challenged with, because it's not as easy as just, bridge over to an L2 like Arbitrum or over to Moonriver. We just can't do that. And so we're building this kind of multi-chain playbook ourselves of here's all the requirements that we need before we can really fully launch into an ecosystem. So I I share a lot of those similarities.
If I could jump in as well, I just have a ton of respect for both what you are doing, because I know how hard it is to launch a DeFi protocol in a single chain, and launching across multiple chains is just a ton of work. I mean, I think every team kind of aspirationally in the early days says we're going to launch on every EVM chain because they think it's going to be really easy to copy paste their code across. But the reality is, just to overuse the McDonald's metaphor, if you establish franchises in all these foreign countries, but you didn't hire any employees to actually work at them, you wouldn't really have a restaurant in another country without employees to operate it. So it is actually a ton of resources to spin up a new deployment of something like Beefy or Lido on a new chain. And I think that's underappreciated, because there tends to be like a cultural thing where people tend to dismiss projects that are from other chains and tend to maybe want to go with the local native one instead. So it is a challenge. And so I have a lot of respect for you guys. But it's also a focus thing, and so I think for us that was why we made the decision to stay on Moonriver and Moonbeam, and I think 2 is going to be enough for us.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You're right. Like I can only imagine, a complicated, like as you get more complicated in the protocol, like launching on multiple chains, you're actually like just spreading yourself too thin at that point.
Yeah, I mean, kind of back to the Salesforce drop here. It's almost like you need account managers per chain almost to be able to like be a degen on that chain, understand the ecosystem. And I give Luke, I think you guys are doing a great job of kind of weaving your way into that ecosystem. And hopefully events like this help you guys get that exposure. And Fire Kid over at Solarbeam, I do commend you guys in terms of like I feel like you guys did tap in, and you were very early on. You tapped into kind of like the organic Polkadot, ecosystem, Kusama ecosystem. Well, like, how did you guys kind of jump into that? Did you have kind of this broad connection of folks you were already kind of connected to, or how did you kind of work on community side, especially early days on Moonriver?
Actually, we didn't really have like a lot of connections. I mean, I was part of the Chaos DAO, which helped a lot, especially in the early days. However, I remember like the first 3 weeks or a month, I was like the sole moderator on Telegram, and this was, I think, the worst time in my life. Like I was barely sleeping, and I think the community was so excited because they were anticipating, especially an EVM-compatible Polkadot parachain, well, Kusama in this case. So when they jumped in, I mean, they jumped in waves. It was very, very hard to handle that. And I think because we were the first, we were close to the community, we were trying to answer every question. I think that's how people started liking us and approaching us, and we started making more and more connections, and then we ended up where we are today, like a well-established AMM in Moonriver and Moonbeam.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's 100% true. And so in the vein of like establishing community, I don't know, and whoever wants to put their hand up for this can kind of take it, but like, have you seen things in other ecosystems, or whether it's Luke or Farkid, maybe it's from afar, you're not in there doing it, but maybe we saw or JBZ on your front, like, have you seen other things in ecosystems that have worked well to help you get that exposure? Are there things like we could do at on the Moonbeam side or Moonriver side that could help you there? We're always open to trying to figure out like what are other ecosystems doing to make it easier for teams to gain that community and get kind of access? Again, it's kind of just an open question. Anybody that wants to jump in or has any thoughts, you can go for it.
Yeah, I can kind of jump in a little bit here. I mean, I've seen pretty strong communities get built on the staking side by doing things like having contests. So, for example, when Cosmos first launched, they had their game of stakes where it was an incentivized testnet, and validators could all participate and try to basically attack each other. It was an adversarial testnet, and it was a really fun game, and you could actually win atoms. You could win prizes, and I think a lot of those type of activities can be really fun for new communities to engage with. So we're thinking of ways in the Moonwell community we can do things like have contests and have like leaderboards and things like that where people can sort of compete in fun ways to become, whether it's developing good community content or whether it's helping educate community in a different language that maybe isn't natively spoken by the team, things like that. And I think just having fun games and prizes and giveaways can actually go really far to helping build a strong community and getting people more engaged and giving people because what we've noticed is that people are so passionate and they want to help in whatever way they can, but they may not know how to help. And so just giving people general guidance, very lightweight guidance on like ways they can get involved and sort of help the community and build up position on the leaderboard and maybe win some prizes by doing it.
I like it. Well, I think we've got some of our marketing team on here. I hope they were taking copious notes about that. I always like to gamify things, and so I think it's a great idea. I know. I think I saw Wiso had started to unmute. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that or if that covered it.
No, yeah. The only other thing I'd say is in some of the communities on the different networks, they actually there will be community members who have done weekly podcasts that are kind of what's going on, what's new in the ecosystem, and they kind of talk with some of the other protocols and have them on and talk about new products that are being developed or that are coming out or so I think stuff like that where it's just more engagement and more information to share with the community on hey, what's being developed, what's new, what's coming, that grows excitement. And I'd say what's worked well for us to really kind of get integrated is obviously continuing to work with as many different partners within the ecosystem as possible. Just because that way we can we're obviously then getting known to all of those different protocols communities. So it's just developing our brand within that specific ecosystem is important by getting to know all their partner projects and getting to know all their user bases and getting them familiar with Beefy.
Gotcha. And I think that this ties into something I wanted to hit on with XCM. So now that XCM is live on Moonriver, I think that it opens up Moonriver to these other parachains on Kusama, and so getting into those communities as well, I think will be important. And so I know FireKid, you've been doing a bunch to be able to support some of these new assets. What are some of the teams you're working with? How is that going? What anything we can expect coming up?
Actually, I think right now that most of the parachains are already in some kind of discussions with us. At least those that they are planning on launch their XC tokens. We are planning actually to heavily support all the XC tokens, and starting with Kusama, of course. Because I mean, if we want to support and expand Kusama and Polkadot, there's need to be some heavy cooperation between not only the projects in one parachain, but in all the parachains as a whole. So we will be supporting from our side, by providing farms and exposure to all the XC tokens to all our community members.
Nice. Luke, you had mentioned Interlay earlier on, and I know there's some cool stuff going on with them. And so I think one question I'd love to ask is how do you think about being able to support assets on Moonwell? What are some of the things that you think about when it comes to actually being able to list an asset, and what does that look like?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, so we've been working really closely with a lot of other parachains to figure out how to get XCM or XC20 assets into Moonwell and listed on Moonwell. And the first one we just listed a few weeks ago was KSM, of course, and that's Kusama coming from the Relay chain. And there are many others we're working with, like Interlay on their KBTC synthetic asset, and also Akala on their AUSD stablecoin, and Remark as well, which is migrating to Moonriver, RMRK. So there's a number of other parachain teams that we're working with, and we want to bring the best parachain assets into Moonwell so that people can both borrow and lend them and use them as collateral and do more in DeFi with them. And so one of the things that we really need to build up together, and this is why we have a strong partnership with Firekid and his team at Solarbeam, and also the Zenlink team and other DEX teams, is as a community on Moonriver, we need to build liquidity on both the DEXs for these new XC assets, as well as the lending protocol. And if we build our liquidity together, then both can actually be healthy. So, for example, the borrowers on the lending protocol can actually become liquidity providers on the DEX. So they can borrow XC assets and then supply liquidity on the DEX, improving the DEX liquidity and allowing DEX users to have better trade execution. And then likewise, the people have access to that XC asset, so they can also lend and borrow. So it creates more liquidity in the ecosystem. And so we can also enable people to have a higher collateral factor on that asset, meaning they can borrow more against it because there's better DEX liquidity. And so as the DEX liquidity builds up and the lending protocol liquidity builds up, it's sort of this flywheel effect where we can both help each other. And so that's what we're really focused on in the short term, is kind of helping to build the DEX liquidity and the Moonwell liquidity for KSM, so that we can enable a collateral, and then people will be able to borrow more KSM, borrow more against their KSM, and then do more in DeFi. And so we look to work with teams to kind of help build the liquidity on Moonriver so that we'll be able to enable collateral, and people will have more utility for that asset. And then one thing I just wanted to mention for synthetic asset issuers, like if you're on a team that has a stable coin, or you have like a liquid staking derivative like Lido, there's a really cool feature that just launched on Moonriver, and that is Mintable XC20 assets. So XC20 assets are basically ERC20 compatible, but they are parachain assets that can go across chain. And one of the beautiful things about Moonriver is that I can actually mint XC20 assets on Moonriver, and they can go to any parachain. So basically, Moonriver could become this gateway into all of Kusama for an asset issuer that's coming from another EVM-compatible chain. And I think that's probably what drove the Lido team to consider Moonriver as their landing point. It's just a really powerful gateway that maybe not a lot of teams realize they could just deploy once and have access to all of Kusama, or deploy once on Moonbeam and have access to all of Polkadot.
Love it. You're doing my job for me, evangelizing my message. But JBZ, I think you unmuted. You got something to jump in here with?
No, I was going to say we had similar thought processes in the development cycle, because our nightmare would be trying to deploy across multiple parachains all at the same time. So we took a bit of a gamble early on, thinking that this, exactly as you said, Luke, this would be kind of a nexus point where people could enter and exit, or onboard and offboard into the dot ecosystems.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, we've got a big unlock KSM coming up soon, and so I would assume that should be something pretty interesting for pretty much everyone here. But especially for like JBZ, that means that folks can now like take the KSM that gets unlocked and kind of stake it over to Lido, right? And how would that kind of, at a high level, how do you see that kind of working?
Exactly that. As it's funny you mentioned specifically KSM, we have had a hard time finding pockets of loose KSM tokens. Most of them are either held in the parachain auction contracts, or they're just held by a few, not a few, I guess a couple hundred entities or early providers. So we're very much looking forward to the unlocks, because something else we've noticed is with Kusama and Polkadot, we're doing a slightly different approach to the validators. And I am not the technical person, so if you want deep questions, please let me defer to the people that built it. But one of the things we've noticed is even on the Kusama ecosystem, we do a variable validator set. So we actually optimize around the best performing validators to generate the best APR. So right now, moving from KSM to liquid KSM, you're automatically going to be earning about 20 to 23% APR just holding that asset. And as we're moving farther into the DeFi ecosystem, we have a couple of requirements we're still working through, and Luke is very aware of this. We need to get a couple liquidity pools on the dexes, such as Solarbeam and others. Then we need to unlock oracles, and that way we can actually get the liquid staking assets into a lending protocol such as Moonwell, where we see a huge amount of utility unlock, because you get to maintain your long exposure to the asset, but now you have the flexibility to go and borrow other assets to do differentiated strategies up to your choosing. And we've seen really good success there. So that's our number one priority, is kind of unlocking that combo stack for us.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, we've been working really well with JBZ's team, and we've been working on how do we build liquidity on Moonriver as well as solve the Oracle problem. I think Wesso mentioned this earlier, is that when you launch on new chains, it just takes time to build up the price oracles that you need for a lot of these protocols to function. And so it's not uncommon, it took Curve some time, or I took, the staked ETH some time on mainnet to actually build a Curve price oracle on the AMM so that they could actually pull accurate prices from Curve. And so it's a similar thing where we'll work together to build a solid price oracle that can pull data from multiple dexes to give us a good price for STKSM. And then we'll work together to build up the liquidity on Moonriver so that people can not only lend out their STKSM, but they can also borrow against it as collateral, which is what everyone wants to be able to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And today, I think the only stable, is that with Solarbeam at this point for the STKSM and KSM, XEKSM fire kit? That's just with Solarbeam, right?
Yeah, I think so. It should be only with Solarbeam now.
Gotcha. And is that similar to like a curved fork, or what did you guys do to kind of optimize that from a pair perspective?
Actually, we were working closely with signups, and we were using their contracts for that. It's a sandal fork mostly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so that's sort of to get into the technical details a little bit. I hope this isn't too far into the weeds, but the Curve price oracle uses a Merkle proof coming from Curve's AMM. Now, Saddle is another stable swap AMM that is very similar, but it's written in Solidity, so it's slightly different. And we're just not sure if the oracle that has already been audited by Curve by Lido on Ethereum is compatible. So we need to do a little bit of research to figure out if there's some differences. If we need to make modifications, we probably need to re-audit that code. But this is all technical details, so I apologize if it's too much information.
No, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. And in terms of, we're kind of going down this risk path and things like this. I know on like Beefy, just by and checking it out, you guys have kind of the safety score. I was always curious, like, how do you guys think about that? And I hope that's not something proprietary we sell, but I was curious about how you guys kind of come up with safety scores and what that looks like.
Sure. So I think in the lifespan of Beefy, we've worked with over 100 protocols. Actually, for every single protocol we work with, we go through like a security audit. So the Beefy developers and strategists will actually do some due diligence work. So one thing about being around for a year and a half is that you've seen, especially when it comes to like reward contracts, so like master chefs, mini chefs, synthetic reward pools. We've seen like almost all variations of them, and also exploit vectors, and then where malicious code usually is entered, and things that have been in the past that have been used to exploit a protocol. So we'll look for certain attack vectors of those contracts, and we'll make sure that they're buttoned up or tightened up. Usually it means like, requiring multi-sig contracts or time locks in order to, move like really privileged functions away from EOAs or upgradable contracts. Just so that if you ever make changes to the protocol that, we have active time to actually change our contracts to make sure that it's all compatible still. So we look for a lot of like security things before we even like launch on top of a protocol. But then when you're talking about the security score itself, what we do is we take, okay, has the protocol been audited? Is this code like battle tested? So is it like a Uniswap fork code? Well, then that code's used every day, 1,000 or million, almost a million times a day. So it's pretty battle tested. For the assets that are in the LP, what's the impermanent loss risk look like? Are these micro cap assets? Are they, high market cap assets? So what's the possibility of them falling or appreciating in price? And so we take all of those pieces and then we put it together into like a safety score, and it's all listed on our docs on how it actually gets calculated. And then we list that now on our V2 version of our site. And it's more just informational. So obviously, users can take it or leave it, but at least gives them a little bit more information into details of what they're investing in. And just trying to make overall like our interface a little bit more retail friendly and give as much information to the investor as possible.
No, it's great. I mean, I think it certainly gives you gives the more info you can kind of give to users. I think at this point, the better, just because you continue to just hear about things in DeFi that are happening. That if the fact that you guys have this kind of safety score and this kind of rigorous process to go through, I think probably does give folks at least a level of comfort. And if there's a low safety score but a high APY, they at least know that they're aping into something that might have some risk to it. So I think that's pretty cool to see. So something I just kind of thought about is Luke, you're coming from Coinbase. What's it been so far? Kind of getting into like the true DeFi degen scene. I think you were probably in it, but you still had a day job at a more buttoned up corporate feel, if you will. How's everything been since you've kind of jumped full feet into Moonwell?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I think a lot of the systems I was building at Coinbase were really based on, staking rewards and infrastructure focused, right? I was building out validators and all the reward payment systems that can help pay, millions of users the fair amount of staking rewards they've earned for staking their Ethereum or their Polkadot or Kusama or whatever they're staking. And so that was a really great experience working a few years there. But one of the nice things about working in DeFi, and this is what is really appealing to me, is just that you get to basically build your own infrastructure from scratch. So, you're in the case of Coinbase, Coinbase has been around for 8 years, and we have both modern systems like the staking rewards infrastructure, and we have older systems. And so a lot of times you're inheriting systems, and they are more centralized by nature because that's just the nature of being a central exchange. And so it's kind of fun to build things in a completely decentralized and trustless way using Web3. And I think a lot of us are drawn to that, being able to just basically operate your own company as like a DAO, or being able to, hold all your funds in a multi-sig and use your multi-sig to do treasury operations. And I think a lot of that is just really liberating because you can kind of leave the shackles of the traditional finance system behind, and you can do things anytime you want on a 24/7 nature. Everything is decentralized and trustless, and we really embrace like not having to have centralized intermediaries, which is awesome. So that's a really fun aspect of just building in DeFi in general. That's really appealing. It's just sort of like being able to be your own bank, being able to operate your own company as a DAO, and just sort of build your own community. It's really fun.
Nice, good stuff. Well, I think we're getting closer to the end. We try and keep it between 45 minutes to an hour, and so we'll move into kind of closing remarks. I'd love to know a little bit about like roadmap for Moonriver, what you're excited about on Moonriver coming in the next 3 to 6 months, kind of thing, and any closing remarks you kind of wanted to throw in there. I'll do opposite order from how we started it out. If we want to jump to FireKid.
Yep. So I'll just start bit with our roadmap. The first thing that we plan on doing, and it should be quite soon, like within a week or two, is we will be integrating like Moonwell's borrow lending protocol, and you will be able to borrow and lend through through Solarbeam from Moonwell. We have already deployed it on testnet. We're just fixing some bugs, so this should be quite soon. Meanwhile, we're also improving our routing because right now there's some issues when people are trying to swap tokens between the traditional AMM and the stable swap. And after that, we will start by launching a governance model first on our launchpad. And then we do plan on expanding that to all of Solarbeam.
Nice. Sounds good. We saw. Oh, did you have more? Sorry, Farkid. I didn't want to cut you off. I didn't know if you had more.
No, it's fine. I mean, I just want to say that I'm extremely excited to see the potential unraveling with the whole parachains and the XC tokens.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's the thing that I think we're all all the Polkadot maxis are pretty excited about. Is like let's see when XCM is really being utilized, and we're kind of in the early stages where we're getting a lot of the asset transfer routes kind of set up today, which is great, and then we can really start working on additional use cases. So I would agree. I think that's super exciting for the whole Kusama ecosystem, including Moonriver. All right, Wiso, what about you? What does roadmap look like? What are you excited about? It doesn't have to just be Moonriver. It can be ecosystem in general. What you're excited about for the next 3-6 months?
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to continue to expand on our current partnerships. So, I mean, we've been partnered with Solarbeam for I think forever since we pretty much launched on Moonriver. And we're actually building a relationship now with Lido, and just got introduced to Moonwell. So everybody on this call, I think we'll be all partners with each other at some point. So we'll continue to support everything that you guys talked about today. So all of the new products and tokens and farms that are coming will be supported on Beefy, and we'll continue to build out our product capabilities as more DeFi ecosystem products come to both Moonriver and Moonbeam. So we've done some really fun and creative things on some of the other blockchains that we're on, and we're looking to bring those types of product options over to the Moonriver and Moonbeam ecosystem as well.
Cool. I think it was JBZ is up next.
Yeah, we on one side a large amount of our focus is on the Ethereum merge. I realize that is outside of the Polkadot ecosystem, but it is pretty important for us and Ethereum in general to not screw it up, I guess, because there's a lot at stake, literally. But for Moonriver, Moonbeam, Polkadot, and Kusama, we're really focused, at least for the next couple of months, really building a solid foundation, or if you want to call it a base of operations, on Moonriver and Moonbeam, and making sure, like I said, we have oracles that were integrated with key partners that are standing up or already stood up on these ecosystems, and then starting to actively monitor how the cross-chain assets are starting to flow, because I think there's going to be a huge amount of rapid prototyping and iteration across all of these parachains, and it's really hard to understand who will or won't win and grow meaningfully in the short term. So it's basically that for right now. Build our foundation and just keep a close eye as XCM really starts syndicating across all the parachains.
Sweet. And last but not least, I'll kick it over to you, Luke.
Yeah, so in the short term, the next few weeks, we're really focused on preparing for our Artemis launch. Artemis is going to be the Moonwell deployment on Moonbeam. So we're getting ready and gearing up for that. And hopefully in the next several weeks, we'll be live on Moonbeam. But on the Moonriver side specifically, we're also very interested in partnering with other protocols. For example, as FireKid mentioned, the Solarbeam team is integrating borrowing and lending directly into their app through Moonwell. And we would love to talk to other teams in the space that might be interested in doing similar, because one of the things that we've established is an ecosystem grants fund, and that will allow us to basically partner with other protocols in the space that want to integrate borrowing and lending. And rather than having to build your own protocol, you could just supply and borrow from the Moonwell contracts in a completely open way, and we can figure out a way to to help fund your development of those features through treasury grants and things like that. So we're really excited about partnering with more protocols in that way. And then we're also have a relentless focus on bringing the best parachain assets to Moonwell, including STKSM from Lido, hopefully in the near future, KBTC from Interlay, XC Remark, and others. So we're really hoping to bring all the best, Akala USD as well, all the best parachain assets in. So we'll have a pretty high focus on that as well as a community. So really excited for the future, and couldn't be more excited about all the different builders we're working with in the Moonriver ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, really thank you guys for hopping on. I think we'll probably be doing something again with I think most of you in probably a couple of weeks when the KSM are getting ready to unlock. But it was awesome to have everybody here again. Thanks for joining, and we'll try and put another one of these together in the next week or so. So thanks, guys. Hope everybody learned something cool today. It was awesome to host, and always good to do these.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
See you, everybody.
Have a great day.